I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Man, that is a sad clown.
Dude, that's pretty good.
This is The Gloom, bringing you weekly interviews with F3 Omaha packs, exploring their F3 experiences and finding those sticky elements that create the glue in the gloom.
Shout out to our sponsors Major Team Mortgage, Omaha Laser Dentistry, Exclusively Eye Care, and Liberty Core Real Estate. We appreciate their support. Now let's get back to the gloom.
All right, welcome back. Here we are. We got another phenomenal man and leader. This guy, I'm excited just to hear his story, especially because I've got a chance to connect with him over the last year or so, and just really appreciate the way he leads his family. And we also share that we both know a little bit of German, although I think he knows more than I do. But just has been fun to watch him lead. So former site Q at the Armory, we got our man Yodel on today, and man, it's good to see you. Where we like to start these just kind of from the beginning. So who EH'd you? What'd you think of the first workout, and how'd you get the name Yodel? That might be an obvious one.
Well, yeah, I think already pretty obvious now after a couple of words I'm saying, right? But yeah, I think my German might be a little bit better than yours, Blake, but your English is better than mine, I hope. So I think you have that going for you. But so I know I'm excited to do this today with you, so close before Thanksgiving, right? I think it's a good thing to have. Be thankful this week. But yeah, so how did I end up at F3? How did I get my name? So I always say I got like probably 20% EH by Slick and 80% by Tonight Show. Simply because I was playing golf with a buddy of mine. You know him, Brian. He works at the Med Center as well. So I was working there at the time. We played golf at one summer, and Slick just joined us. There was a spot open, so he just said, "Hey guys, do you mind if I play with you?" And we were like, "No, of course not." So we talked a little bit about it. He mentioned like, "Oh yeah, I know Tonight Show," and we're like, "Oh, what is he doing? Like, what are you guys doing?" So he talked a little bit about F3. Didn't think much about it, to be honest. Just like, yeah, another workout group, right? Some cool stuff going on everywhere. And then it was Tonight Show who reached out to me and said, "Hey, I heard you met Slick, and why don't you want to try this?" And it was in the midst of COVID, I want to say. So I was like, yeah, I want to try something new. Have to say, didn't put much thought into it. Just like, okay, it's a free workout, let's try it. That's literally how I approached it. And that was 2020, I think, in summer, August or something like that. I'm very bad with my anniversary. Every year I forget it. And I live 2 or 3 miles from the maze, so it was an obvious choice to show up there. And showed up that morning. I'm a person who's always early to appointments. It's like the German, half German in me, half Austrian in me. So I was there quite early, was waiting. Then Tonight Show came. We started the workout. I don't even remember who the cue was, but I remember I enjoyed it, and I was like, "Oh, this is great." I worked out quite a bit before my whole life, but this was a different kind of working out. And then I was like, it's got to be interesting, like with the circle of trust. I didn't really know what that means at the time. I was a little bit skeptical, but I fairly genuinely enjoyed it. And then when they named me, all I told myself was like, just don't make a Sound of Music reference, because I was really afraid to get a name after something from the movie. And I think it started with Terminator. Yeah, sort of Terminator, Arnold, and stuff like that. And then when it was Yodel, it was a quick decision from the group. So I am actually very fortunate with my name now that I think about it, and I totally love it. So it's a good name.
Yeah. What? Give us a little bit of the backstory, because were you born in Austria and moved here, or what's been your sort of journey from that perspective?
So yes, I'm born and raised in Austria, lived almost 30 years there, I want to say. When like small town, grew up in a small town, 2,500 people, surrounded by the mountains, like just lived in a valley, right? Did the usual go to school, high school, graduate from high school, go to college. Um, then during my master's in Austria, there was like an exchange program they offered in UNO, University of Omaha. That was a partner university of my college back home. So they said, if you guys want to do it, it's a fellow program. They had like 6 or 8 spots to fill. That was like in 2013 for the semester. I had no idea where Omaha is at the time. I didn't know anything about it. And I think that's not true. I knew 2 things. Warren Buffett, of course, and Big Bang Theory, right? She's from Omaha in the series. So that was the 2 things I knew. That's it. Didn't put much thought into it. I was like, this is cool. I was going to study abroad. It's going to be fun. Came here. It was in August. It was a great time. Ran into my now wife, Brittany. She's from Omaha. She grew up here. And she studied abroad the semester before at my university. We didn't run into each other. Didn't see each other at bars, clubs. We went to the same bars and clubs. Never saw each other. But that was the icebreaker. And I moved back home when I was done. She moved to Austria with me. We lived there for 4-ish years, maybe. Got married eventually. She was very homesick, very close to her parents and brothers. And so we had a discussion and said, what's the best plan? And we then decided, let's give Omaha a shot. And that was November 2018, November 8th. I remember it, is when we came here. And yeah, that was a little bit of my story. Didn't know anyone except my wife's family. That's how I ended up in Omaha. So good time, good 5 years. Never looked back so far. It was really good.
Yeah, I'm sure you miss the mountains, and you've gone back home a couple times, right? I mean, COVID probably restricted that a little bit, but
yes, I was just home 2 or 3 weeks ago, so I made a quick trip to see my family. So yes,
nice. Well, so I mean, because you mentioned a little bit too, playing sports growing up too, from a sort of physical activity perspective. But what has been sort of your journey or experience from a working out or sports perspective?
Yeah, so people who've never done it probably don't really see it as that much of a sport. But when I was free, or everybody back home, when you're free-ish, you learn how to ski. So that was, of course, one thing that I did every winter, every season. 30, 40, 50, 60 times you go up the mountain a year. So that was that thing everybody does. So that's kind of like my first exposure to it. My brother was competitive skier. So I kind of like grew up with that mindset. Then I just tried out different things here and there when I was little. And then I got into soccer. A little bit too late probably to get really good. I was like 10 or something like that. But he taught me lots of good lessons, because first season you're not good, you don't get much play time. You work as hard as you can, and then a couple years later I made it to starting 11. We were a championship team in my state, so that was cool just to see that. And like a little bit similar to F3, right? You have people from all walks of life. So you have like your buddy that lives next door, you have the farmer's boy, you have the guy whose dad is a dentist or a lawyer, right? So you have all of those different people that get together. And that was really something that I enjoyed so much about soccer. Like, you celebrate together those wins and you figure out what you can do better. And then I was like 16, 17, a couple of bad injuries. So I was like, well, it doesn't really make sense to keep doing it. Then a buddy of mine just started, like, it's called like floorball or uni hockey. It's like hockey indoors. Like a gym. So he started a little club there in Austria. And I was like, you know what? This sounds fun. It's a little plastic ball, really cool. So I helped build that team, that club. Did that for, I want to say 6-7 years. We ended up with, I want to say 80 members. And we pretty quickly had a league going, some tournaments going. It was really cool. And we then like focused on the youth players, helped them. That was really nice to get that experience. That was my first, probably more formal leadership role. And it's all about getting sponsorship money, right? So it was interesting. We were like 18 years old. We walked into those companies and did our pitches and impressed them. We made some good deals, and it was very cool. And now, fast forward, the club still exists. They grew, and my nephew actually, he started to play a year ago, which was pretty cool to see. And he had a whole presentation in class about it and talked. Yeah, my uncle my godfather, he was part of the founding members, and that was really cool. So
That is
well,
so
like I never
cool.
thought I would
Do we
make an
have?
impact 20 years later or 10 years later. We
Yeah.
did. So that's kind of like how my
So,
journey started. And then I got into running play, believe it or not. I used to run a lot, 7 days a week. It's pretty,
what happened?
we got bored. Like my wife was a D1 athlete, track and field and cross country. So she got me into it. And first time running with her, we just started dating. I was like, I'm in shape. I will do a 5K with her. Ran probably like 22 minutes, took me for 5K, which I thought, oh my God, this is so fast, right? I'm sure I impressed
Mhm.
her. Talked to her later that day, and I was like, so how slow was that for you, or how fast? She was like, well, usually around like 18 minutes. All she said. Didn't even smile or chuckle. She was like, yeah, usually it's 18 minutes for me. So all I needed to know. But yeah,
That's
did it
funny.
for, I want to say 5 years. Got a little bit too skinny, to be honest. That was maybe one of the things why I stopped. When I look at my weight picture now, I'm like, whoa. It was a little bit too much, probably what we did. And then life happened, right? Moved to Omaha, tried something new, and then F3 came around.
Yeah. Man, I love it. That's really cool. It's interesting to hear about different sports, in different regions of the world. And do we have anything like that here? And what did you call? What was the name
I
of
think
that?
it's
It's basically
Strophe.
like
Yeah,
handball,
floorball, I think is the official name.
floorball.
Volleyball,
Okay.
yeah. And it's not really big in the US. It's huge in Sweden for whatever reason. And they have like a World Cup with like 10,000 people in the arena. It's massive.
Hmm.
So, and there are professionals
Yeah.
there, but it's very, very small in the US. I don't really think it's a thing in the Midwest at all. So, that was a cool period of my life. Tried something new. And then like when you get older, like, do you really want to do that to your knees? Running in a gym,
Yeah.
that hard, right? Pretty hard on your bones. So, but it was good. It's a cool sport, especially for kids. For
Yeah.
parents, it's easy. Doesn't take the whole day. Like when you sit on a baseball field, right? Doesn't take the whole day for a game. Risk of injury for the little ones is pretty low. It's not very aggressive. So that's kind of like how we positioned it compared to like soccer
Yeah.
even, and that made it successful. So
That's really cool. What do you feel like? So then, as you started getting into F3, was some of the motivation to show up to that first F3 workout just to build relationships? Because you'd only been here for 2 years at the time, right? Did you have a lot of friends, or?
yeah, so I would consider or describe myself as a pretty outgoing person. I'm usually not very
Mhm.
shy, but I didn't have like a ton of friends. It's just I had like small circle, I would say, but I really saw it like two things. One was like, well, tonight Joe asked me. I was like, well, let's say yes, right? At the end of the day, he was like my boss's boss's boss. I was like, let's just be nice and don't say no right away. That was kind of like my initial reaction too. Um, and the other one was like, well, maybe I can use it as networking, not professional networking, but more like to get to know more locals, right? Um,
Yeah.
that's so hard when you move to really find people that you can relate to. And that was my second thought. I was like, yeah, let's just see who is out there, right? I didn't know, will it be all older people or younger guys? Is it like all 18-year-old kids, or is it like all older people, right? So I had no idea. So I went in with that open
Mhm.
mindset, and it was way smaller back then. People that start today, they can't even imagine. If you have like 4, 5, 6 people, and there was one. I don't know, maybe you know this, but I don't think there was much more than the Maze on first days at the time.
Yeah.
So that was different, right? Totally different than it is now. So
Mhm.
that was really when I walked in. I was like, okay, and I could tell within 2 minutes this is a good group of people. I think you feel that very
Mhm.
quickly, and if you think, okay, I can fit in here. I don't even know what it was, but I had a good feeling from the first day.
Yeah, that's really cool. Do you feel like so when you came in to the group, how did you go about building those relationships? Just sparking conversations because you're outgoing, or I mean, did you start trash talking Mufasa right away, or how did that?
No, I didn't want to hurt him right away. as we know, he's like a delicate flower. We don't want to be too mean to him. Um, it was really, it just grew organically, right? I think it's a fine line when you're the new guy. I want to be proactive. I want to ask questions, but I don't want to make people feel like it's forced. That's something I struggle with. If a new guy comes in and they feel like they need to be the center of attention right away. So it's finding that balance. And it's the marble chatter, right? Between exercise or doing exercises, and it's just the coffee afterwards is probably 80% here will tell you that, right? It's the coffee where you get to know people, and have that talk. And I use it like I used it to my advantage, probably that I'm not from Omaha, because I had something to tell people, right? Or I had questions to ask that you would probably never ask Griswold or so, because you know the stuff about Omaha pretty well. So that's kind of like for me what I use as an icebreaker. Use that being the foreigner, not speaking perfect English, right? Far away from that, having an accent. Use that as a conversation starter, and don't let it hold you back. That's probably how I approach it at F3 and how I approach it every.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm curious if, because I think you and I are in a similar boat, having younger kids, right? And so it's kind of like, it's hard to attend all of the other like second F kind of fellowship events, but what's been your experience? Have you been able to get out to many or?
So as you know, just one example, right? Even when I was a PsyQ, I always told you, well, Saturday morning, it's not going to happen, right? The 7:30 to 8:30, just because I prioritize my family on weekends over F3 on purpose. It was this morning, actually, Unicycle had a good COT, talked about adjust your volume. And adjust the volume. If you turn it up in one area, you have to turn it down in another one. That's kind of like how I felt when we had our first kid, when Eleanor was born. I did attend a couple happy hours. And I think CSAP doesn't really count, but I think that's pretty much what it was, the more formal second F opportunities. And it's simply, I'm going to be honest, it's not that I don't have the time. I just prioritize the family, so I don't make the time. That's kind of like how I will be open about that. It's not that I don't have time. I think you can always find the time. I just, right now in my life, I'm not there to make time for that.
Totally. And I think that that sort of aligns with like the F3 Q source model, right? Of like, your M is in the center, then your kids, then some of your relationships, and then your mentoring relationships, and then work, right? And then really F3 is not necessarily on that concentrica. But have you noticed, something I think that's always been interesting to me is like sometimes you start going to F3, you start building some better relationships, and maybe it's the endorphins too from the physical fitness. But has there been any impact on maybe family life or your marriage that you feel like has been positive from F3, or maybe negative too? I think some guys have found that.
Negative, not really. I think I was pretty good with Brittany, with my M, to say, hey, I want to work out these days, and she's very good about that. She's not a morning person. She's like, don't worry about it. And I say, I will be back by 6:30 or 7, and I just stick to that in the morning. So never had any negative impact. I would say more on the positive side. The one thing is, it's nice for me to have people who can talk about things that you would not talk with Ram about. And I grew really close with Boji. I will consider him probably my best friend in Omaha. And we talk a lot. Almost every weekend I stop by there when my wife is pregnant right now, so she takes a nap sometimes during the day when our daughter sleeps. So I just go over there, we have a beer, and we talk. So I think that helps a lot. We all have our things to deal with, right? To just get his opinion or also hear him out. So I would say that's definitely that positive impact. Also, I'm more aware of the faith aspect in my life. So I think that made me more think about it, be more proactive. So I would say I would consider that a positive impact as well. So that definitely I see that, yes. And there's also something, you get up at 5 in the morning or 4:30, depending if you pre-run, that does something to you, right? I don't know, it's endorphins or so, but it does something to you, and it helps me through the day. be
Yeah.
more productive.
That's awesome. No, I love that. I think it's different maybe for each of us, right? A little bit of like the way that it carries over into the other areas of your life. I know for me, I'm very similar to what you said, right? It's like, it helps me to just be a little more calm throughout the day. And it's the days that I don't do it, I notice a little more irritable. But what's it been like as because you started the group, right? And then you had your first kid sort of while you were after you started,
Yes.
right? What was that experience like?
So that's one story I share with a lot of people back home when they ask about what you like about Omaha. When Eleanor was born in July, I think 2 nights we stayed at the hospital, right? Pretty normal. The first guy who showed up when we were back home, who brought us, I think it was pizza. The first guy was Mufasa.
Oh,
It was
wow.
nobody else of our friends or childhood friends from Miami. It was him, right? And the texts I got from my free guys versus non-free guys, I think it's probably 5 times as many texts from them. So that showed me, like, you knew people, right? It's almost a year you've been part of the group, but that kind of like showed me, wow, there is something to that. It's not just, oh, you work out together. So
Mhm.
to me, that was very impressive. I did not expect that. It was really cool. Then Gato came and lots of other guys showed up. So that was really, really cool to see. That was very special.
That's awesome. What's it been like being a dad?
Best thing ever, man.
Yeah.
Very short and sweet. Best thing ever. Wouldn't want to have it any other way now.
Yeah. Has there been any struggle for you? I struggle with, like, I'm so selfish that, introducing kids to the mix is just, I have to be less selfish all the time. And I struggle with that, but I don't know.
For me, it's more feeling sometimes guilty when I'm selfish, right? Or when you do something with friends, or in the morning when I know maybe will prefer to work out as well, but she's like, no, don't worry about it, you can go. And that's more where I struggle. Not feel guilty about it, and just talk about it with your M, right? Say, hey, I want to do this, and if you want to do whatever, that works as well. So just I think that's the balance you need to find, because the first 6 months is all about survival, right? We were lucky enough; she was home for half a year almost. I think 5 months, so that made it a little bit easier. But once that stopped, it's like, okay, just don't have coffee and show up at 7:30, right? Without a kid, it's never a
Yeah.
big deal. But now that you don't do that stuff, for example, so that's what I changed the most. I think if you ask guys, I don't join coffee that often anymore. Just
Yeah.
say, guys, I have to back out. Or I used to love Saturday morning workouts. Totally changed now because my kid is awake and I want to spend breakfast with them and enjoy that. So I really post at the Dragon's Lair right now. So
Yeah.
I think.
I love that. That's where I'm at. It's like, I don't Saturdays I have to plan ahead and ask for permission way in advance, which is totally fine, right? Like you said, it's kind of nice to be up and, just Saturday morning routine, right? Make some pancakes or whatever they want. And that's awesome. What do you think for you, as you think about just sort of your um kind of how all the things connect, right? So fitness, fellowship, and faith. You mentioned a little bit that faith piece, maybe more awareness there, but what's been your faith journey, and maybe how has it grown over the years?
Well, so for everybody who doesn't know that, but in Austria, or Central Europe, it's basically 80% Catholic, right? And you're born, raised Catholic. You do baptism, first communion, all of that. It's the normal path that you do when you live there. I did all of that. I was an altar boy for a couple of years as a
Mm-hmm.
kid, so I went through that whole thing, right? And the older I got, like my relationship with faith or with God or SkyQ, whatever you want to refer to, right? It changed, and it changed in a way where, with all the issues we had in the church, right, in Europe, that I started to say, well, it's not that my faith is disappearing or getting weaker, but I always say I don't have a problem with the boss up there. I struggle with the personnel down here. That's all
Oh, yeah.
right? So that's why I walked away from the Catholic Church back home. Part of it is also there is a church tax in Austria you have to pay once you start working. Within a month, church reaches out and say, this is your church tax you have to pay now. So lots of things that I was not comfortable with. But so kind of like that aside, I always had my faith, but I kept it to myself, I would say. And now to me, it's like, it's not about going to church. It's about, are you a good person? Do you help others? Like when I switched jobs, I had a big boost in my career, and so our income changed quite a bit. And I was shorter before Christmas, and we said, let's do something good with that, right? So we decided to do some donations there and other things here. And Sunday, I said, church Sunday for us is not being distracted, have family time, make breakfast together, all of us. We make a big breakfast, spend the whole morning together. That's like my church for Sunday morning. We prefer that over getting up earlier. Then we need to hush hush, get everybody into the car to go in and listen to priest, right? Not that that's bad, but that's maybe more how we see it in my family, and how we try to just be a good Christian, if you want to break it down to that. But it doesn't mean you just need to fall in line and go to church every Sunday, and then you are like a total douchebag to the waitress later, right? We all know those memes. That's probably not what we intend to do. So that's probably how I see my journey. And with F3, what it helped me is, hey, there is something to that. To stand together, circle up, and you do a prayer. It can be a thankful one, or you ask for something. There is something to that, and one thing, for example, with my mom, when we found out that she's very sick a couple of weeks ago, that she has Parkinson, it meant probably so much more than I thought when I told my mom, hey, all of us got together and we thought of you, we prayed for you, right? Those are the things that I think are very powerful that we tend to forget. Just telling somebody, hey, we thought of you, and sometimes you have like 50 people, and then you send a picture to somebody and say, hey, we were thinking of you. And that is something I never thought of before F3. So that's probably, from a faith perspective, the biggest impact F3 had for me personally. And that is pretty powerful. And just, just the stories you hear, and it's like, wow, there is something to that.
Yeah. What? How's your mom doing? What's the latest with
She's doing, I want to say, pretty okay. Her mind is in the right space. She's in a very good mental space. And it was more for me when I flew there. It was hard to see when your mom's arm is shaking 24/7, right? And she was like the housewife. She had everything perfect. She cooked every day and all of that, and she struggles with that. She's doing well. It was cool to surprise her. Last that I could do that, I could just book my ticket and fly home. So that was awesome, and it was a good trip. Very good. And seeing my sister, I'm very close with her. So we will see what happens. It could be 10 years from now, everything is fine, or this was her last birthday. So
yeah. Well, it's awesome you got to go back and see her. And it was for her birthday,
yes,
right?
I surprised her, yeah. Pretty much 3 weeks ago now. That's when I flew home. Just left Thursday, came back Monday. So it was a quick trip. Nice. 40 hours of traveling. I love it. For 3 days.
You touched on a couple things there, and I don't know if you would elaborate anymore, because I think there's a lot of value behind them. But like this idea of no devices, sort of quiet time, sort of like a true rest day with the people in your that you're closest to in your family. Where does that come from? Where'd you get that idea, or what's sort of the purpose behind that?
So the no devices, not possible. My wife and I are both terrible. Phones are always on us when we have dinner and breakfast. So unfortunately, we are bad about that. But the idea of, like, I would call it quality time, is really from my sister. They started that a couple of years ago. They are very strict about the no devices when they have dinner and stuff. And as busy as we all are, that's what we started. Let's just enjoy Sunday mornings. And my wife was like, let's not be rushed. She's like, why do we need to do something, right? She said that quite often. And finally, I was like, yeah, it's a good point. And when we lived in Europe, I traveled a lot with my previous job, traveled all over the world, and always busy. Come home a Saturday, super tired, right? Jet lagged. And then I wanted to do something Sunday again. And we kind of, like, the older you get, you realize that's not the best thing to do. And that's really now our mantra. Like Sunday morning, it's just enjoy it as a family, and whatever we want to do, we do. It could be we go to Trader Joe's and have fun together. Little silly things like that, right? Just whatever we feel like doing that morning is what we usually do.
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me, I forget who there's several authors, but I'm thinking of Jordan Rayner, who talks about like a true Sabbath, rest day, right? Where you're just focused on, doing fun stuff as a family, and not working. I was, it's like I'll come up with some sort of yard work or some chore or something I feel like I have to do.
And I do think it's also part of my culture, how I grew up. Sunday is like no stores are open. How dare you mow your lawn? Your neighbor will call the cops on you. That's too loud.
Really?
Yes. How dare you do that? Restaurants are open, but that's about it. So it's literally everything shuts down on Sundays. I don't know if it's still the case, maybe changed. But I was used to that, right? Sunday's really more the rest day, or you go skiing or hiking, things like that. So maybe it's a little bit from that still.
Yeah, interesting. I do have to ask. So, when I hear your story and just when I interact with you, right, I see this very compassionate man who loves people. You care about your community, and you're a phenomenal leader. And I guess in my experience, a lot of times there's maybe something you've been through or someone in your life that maybe showed you the way. But where do you think some of those skills or character traits come from for you?
That's a good question. Without really thinking about it, my first answer will probably be my dad. My dad, so he's from Germany originally, moved then to Austria at a time where that meant you needed a visa, had a different currency. He wasn't allowed to buy land as a foreigner. So that was all before the European Union. So it was a bigger thing at the time, right? Today, that's like moving to a different state in the US. But he comes from a very low income, blue collar family, had no money, nothing. He worked his way up. And I think that work attitude I definitely have from him. But he was always like good dad or still is a good dad for us. He never screamed at us. He never hit us. He was very he figured it out. I don't know how, but he managed to do that, right? So, and he said one thing to me when I was probably 15. I was a very good friend, childhood friend at the time. He got involved with some of the wrong people, let's call it that. And I just that, what's the big deal? He's my buddy. Why shouldn't I hang out with him, right? We're like friends since we went to kindergarten. I'm like, well, yes. However, the people you surround yourself with, that's who you will turn into in a couple of years from now. Just be careful of that, right? So surround yourself with good people will be this short story. And that stuck with me. And I realize it, the older I get, the more I realize it. And it's when we started dating and we had you have those more philosophical conversations, right? Hopefully in a relationship at some point. In the beginning, she was like, what do you mean? But then relationship going on, she started to realize wow, there is something to that, right? There is something why successful people surround themselves with successful people. There's a reason for that. So that I think is the main thing, and that's what I try to do. Successful people, yes, but also just genuinely nice people. That's my goal.
Yeah, I love it. That's pretty cool, and it's something to aspire, right? To be that kind of dad that just loves your kids, unconditionally, and sharing wisdom like that with them, even when it's hard, right? Saying yes isn't the best thing that a dad can do all the time. Sometimes you got to tell them no, but to give them a reason why, I think it's really cool. Liberty Core Real Estate is your homegrown real estate broker. If you're looking to buy or sell real estate, whether personal or investment, Armando, aka Brian, and Megan Michaels' company is ready to serve you. With Command Center in Old Town Elkhorn and agents all throughout the metro, they are more than ready to guide and serve you in your next real estate endeavor. Whether your next move needs to happen now or in 5 years, call or text Armando at 402-770-2165 to get your questions answered. And a special offer for F3 Nation PAX members, Liberty Core will donate $250 to your sponsor of choosing for every closed transaction. Stop looking, start finding today with Liberty Core Real Estate. definitely something I'm trying to do as a dad. Although they ask why so
They
much,
ask why
I
and then
don't
why
know.
again, right?
Yeah. Hey, the other thing I want to talk to you about is leadership, right? So our mission is plant, grow, serve small workout groups for the invigoration male community leadership. So curious, kind of your thoughts, like how are we doing? Do you feel like your experience with the VQ or maybe as the site Q, you're able to sort of build some leadership skills or exercise some of your leadership skills?
Well, VQ mine was, I was pretty bad, like almost all of us. I tried to recreate a soccer workout, whatever I had. It was not the best idea when it's pitch dark, right? So that wasn't that great.
Yeah.
But the lesson I learned there: keep it simple, right? Don't overthink
Hmm.
it sometimes. So then I changed, and now all my workouts, or almost all of them, I just have a playlist with very unique songs, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I just have workouts that always are tailored to the song that's playing. So I feel like it should be a hard workout when you lead, but keep it simple so people can follow. So that's probably the biggest takeaway. And as a psych, you just do it, right? Just do it and reach out to people. I think I had not a single time somebody said, no, I don't want to queue. They maybe said, I cannot queue this week, but hey, what's your next available
Mm-hmm.
slot, right? So that was cool and that was very surprising. I was very nervous. Will I have enough people to lead? Or how often do I need to step in, right? Which then I always make sure I have a workout ready. It's just like you, so always be prepared. That would be my other leadership takeaway. If a guy oversleeps or forgets about it, then knock on wood, it never happened.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be my two main takeaways. Be prepared and keep it simple.
Nice. What was it like, sort of, as you were going through your journey and then all of a sudden you get this opportunity to take over and lead a site? How did that feel?
It was cool. I was very excited that the Gator reached out to me, and when we talked about it, I, I don't think I really thought much about it. I think maybe a day or so, and I said, "Yeah, that sounds really cool." Um, and I was excited. I liked the whole aspect of the armory. It's in Elkhorn. The first pop up was in an afternoon, right? That was cool. We went to Jukes afterwards. The people that show up there was a good group, or is still a good group, I should say. And I really enjoyed it. The whole idea of like with the shovel flag, right? The tank that's there is cool. So I was really excited, or I'm still excited that it was the SecU. It was a great year. And the little
Yeah.
um, beef we had with the other two sites that just popped up within a couple of weeks. So that was fun. Just get that going a little bit with the
Yeah.
intention. I can say that now, as long as people show up, that's all we want, right? So fine print and
Yeah.
like I would say, like, we don't care where they show up at the end of the day, but just get people out there. And if that helps, if we have some Twitter beef, let's do it.
I like that. I'm curious. So when you and Gator did your shovel pass, there was like this video or like a pre-blast that you guys did. Tell me about that. I remember seeing it, but I never fully understood
Yeah,
what was going
nobody
on
does.
there.
Probably we don't even understand it. The idea was there was a Terminator scene that I'm the Terminator Lederhosen, um, and
Oh, okay.
where he walks on, where he takes the sunglasses, where he buys or not buys them, where he grabs them. I think it's the first Terminator. So that was kind of like the idea to recreate that, um, and so that's what we did. Light Bright was the pilot
Nice.
with the drone, and that's what we did.
And is that because Arnold Schwarzenegger is
Yes,
Austrian? Was that
and the
okay?
Lederhosen
Yeah.
because of yodeling, and it's a
Yeah.
legit pair
Yeah.
from Austria, so that's why we did it.
That's awesome. I love it. What so then tell us, because as you were leading the site, right, then you get to this point where you've got to find somebody to take it over for you. So talk us through that and sort of how you landed on Tea Party.
Um, I wanted I wanted to make sure it's somebody I feel good about handing it over, so I know it's in good hands. It's not somebody who will just drop the ball, right? That was my first kind of like on my checklist. Okay, that's one trait I want that person to have. The other one was like who really showed up a lot at the armory, and who did I see that actually changed for the better, right?
Hmm.
And or who embraced it, you could say. And Tea Party, I mean, I think he lost like 50 pounds showed up every time, got into running, really got fit. He's just a great person. Thinking about what he does now, right, as a foster parent, which I didn't know at that time, of course. But that just showed me now, okay, what's the right choice, right? So it was pretty easy. It was not a long list that I had. So I was really excited when he was like, yep, he wants to do it. I think it took him a couple days to think through. He wanted to talk it through with his wife, which I, of course, respected. And then I was excited, yeah. And I did it quite early. He was in March or so, and November and the end of October was the class. So I wanted to be prepared. It's kind of like me. I like I like to be prepared. It's the once a project manager, always a project manager, probably. I was excited.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and he's a great fit, and like you mentioned, I mean, he just is dove right in, right? So I think it's cool to give him a chance to lead, and I think he's doing a great job. You know, I am curious. A lot of guys, when they hand off the flag, sort of go through a transition, like they maybe stop posting as much, or they go to all the other Friday sites, or but what's life been like since
I left the country. I left the country after handing it over a couple of days, so it's probably no, jokes aside. I want to make sure I post a blog party since I'm back. I want to just check out a couple other sites out west, so Fancy Feast. That, of course, I want to go back to the Armory. To me, it's really, I don't want to drive 30 minutes in the morning. So the choices are limited within like 15 minutes, right? But I think it will be a mix still between Armory, Fancy Feast now, and Block Party. We had a great workout at Block Party, so it's a good one.
What's your, I mean, as you think about sort of leadership opportunities within F3 and just where you're at in your life, are you looking to do something else from a leadership perspective? Or are you excited to just have a chance to show up and work out and fellowship? Or what do you,
That is a question I have not really thought about, to be honest with you. But if I will give you an answer now, it would probably be, I think Gator mentioned that, like the cookie jar. I put a lot of it in right now, so I think it's time for me a little bit to take out a couple more cookies. So just show up and enjoy it, and maybe help with bigger events, and see just where F3 is heading, right? We had massive growth. It was spectacular. I gonna be honest, I was skeptical about if we can still keep the same spirit alive with so many new people joining. I have to say it's still there, which is very exciting. I was very skeptical, so I'm very excited to see that it's still the same, and that makes me really happy. So I'm very excited what happens in the next years with F3 Omaha.
Yeah, when you reference that sort of the same feel or culture, what do you think? What do you mean when you say that? Like, what do you think that it is that sort of is that secret sauce or that makes it special?
It's not that you just show up to work out. That's honestly, for me, it's probably the least important part at this point. It's, hey, how's Blake doing, right? Or when we talk about work or our private life, just knowing, hey, what's going on, or unicycle, he didn't post for a while, right? And you reach out, hey, what's going on? And hey, I'm just readjusting a little bit my schedule, or with Boji to hang out. That's what I was like, how will that be with so many you guys, right? Do you even know them when they show up? And as we all know, if you don't show up, the ones you are closest with, they probably text you, right? If you don't show up twice, 3 times in a row. So that's what makes it unique. Really, that friendship, and that's the glue that really holds us together. I fully believe, and when you read the Free to Lead, right, the first F, it's important, but I think it's not as important anymore the longer you do this. I mean, it's more the second piece, and it's, as adults, it's so hard to have those deep relationships with people, and like Slick and Boji, those two, I would not have the relationship I have with them without F3, right? And to me, coming in, not knowing anyone, that made a big difference, and that's why I'm very, very passionate about that, and I just love how we do it with the shovel flags. It's cool. COT is great. The prayer at the end. It's every time a different guy who leads. That's nice. And some guys, if you want to have a hard workout, if you see that name on the list, that's where you can show up. That's really cool.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because it's like we have this blueprint, and if we just follow it, right, and stick to it, but like you said, it's so much more than just the workout. And I'm right there with you. Like I'm pretty sure my fitness over the last couple of years has just declined, but but I feel like a much different place from a second and third F perspective, that I feel overall healthier, right? Sort of including mental health in that picture too. So it's interesting just how, like, over time, that first F, you start to realize, like, okay, I need to stay healthy, but this isn't the point. It
Yep.
just is what gets you in. Is there, anything else from your perspective that you, maybe any stories or things that you were wanting to share today with guys that are listening?
Well, stories. Well, depends on what kind of stories we want to share here, but I think it's more for all the guys that are maybe a little bit newer to F3. Um, I would encourage people to not worry about, do I post 4, 5, 6, 7 times, right? Sometimes now you can post 7 times a week. I think just try once a week at least. Don't, and even if you are maybe in a very, I don't know, hard time of your life, or you don't feel like working out, just show up once. Or heck, if you're injured, just show up to coffee. And
Oh.
that's really what I think will get you through. And I know now it's getting cold, right? It's gonna be, this morning was already a little bit chilly, but if you don't feel like at minus 40 real feel to no workout, that's okay, right? But maybe you come to coffee, we maybe trash talk you for it a little bit and give you a hard time, especially if me or the boss are there. But I really would say, like, that's important. Just don't lose the connection you have, because it's unique. And I truly believe it's almost impossible to find anywhere else. From my experience, I don't think
Yeah.
you find that anywhere else.
Well said, man. Hey, something else that just came to mind. I was at a workout a couple weeks ago, and somebody else was queuing, and they were trying to do Yodel Jacks, but they didn't really demonstrate or tell us what those are. So tell us what a Yodel Jack is. What is it? Is it like a crowd pleaser
It's a motivator, actually.
or motivator? That's right.
And I didn't even name it. I hope I got this right. I think it was Escobar who named them, because I did them a couple times in a row. So, and I think he then named them. And yeah, it's like my workout I started to do. Like, you need something people talk about, right? So it's the music. There will always be David Hasselhoff when I cue. It just has to be, no matter which song of his. And Yodel Jack's usually one of those, or Rammstein. One of those three things you will always see or hear. And that's the part, right? You can make it fun. And it's still a good beatdown, which I hope. I usually deliver a pretty intense workout, but make it fun. Just have some fun, some trashy music or some classics, and you ruin them for everybody because you do, like, I don't know, 75 burpees in 2 minutes, whatever it is, which you would enjoy. But yeah, so that's kind of like how the Yodel Jack started. And my goal is to maybe like 20 instead of 10. But I tried at home, and 15 is my limit. So if you can't cue it, don't do it. If you can't do it, don't cue it, right? So maybe once, 10-year anniversary or so, I see something like that. You might be right.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, yeah, I love it. It is cool to have something unique and special that guys can always expect at your cue. So definitely, and I appreciate the David Hasselhoff, all three of those, right? I like the Rammstein too. But so tell me, I guess the other question I have for you, we've been kind of asking guys, when you think about the Q source, right, and sort of the get right, live right, lead right, and then leave right, or that last quadrant talking about legacy. What sort of your thoughts or hopes when you think about the legacy that you're leaving here? What do you hope people remember about you?
I mean, to put it short, I would say it's maybe two things. One thing is, he was always there when we needed him. Like, you can literally call me at 2 a.m., maybe call twice because I'm on D&D, but I will usually answer and I will help. And the second one is, I try at least to bring like a positive spirit to things I'm doing, positive mindset. I'm one of those people, and I say this openly, I do not know what it feels to be depressed. I never had that a day in my life. I just don't know it. So doing that, I was like, if I can help people maybe have a shitty morning or a bad day, I try to be positive, right? So it's maybe very unique about me. We all have our issues, right? Or some bad things happen to us in our lives. Or like with my mom now, it wasn't like the world is ending now. It's like, okay, the good thing is I will see her. I can see my family. I can see my dad, my brother, my sister, my niece and nephew, right? That was the mindset I got in within 2 hours. First moment I was sad, I cried on the phone with my sister, but then right away I flipped that switch, right? So that's probably how I'm different versus a lot of other people. But I try to just the good mood, the good spirit. I try at least to give that a little bit to others, which I hope if when I do that it helps people. So people remind that about me. That would be all I can ask for.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, I love it, and the good thing is you're not going anywhere, so we get to experience those things about
Here for
you.
the long run, yes.
Yeah, love it. Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your day just to talk through, and man, it's so cool to just hear your story. And I think as guys see out there, I know we've had so many great conversations, mumble chatter, in the gloom or at coffee when you're able to attend. So I think if guys see you, would encourage them to just get to know you a little bit more because you're a wonderful man. So appreciate you, brother.
No, same man, and it's always great to talk to you. And I think we had some very good conversations, as you said, which sounds crazy, right? At 6:15 in the morning or 5:30, but really good ones, and that gave me a lot of things to think about too. And I was hoping we would do this in person, by the way, so I would see your house family.
I know.
But, we need to change that. So that's next on our list, right?
Yeah. Well, we'll do a little Namerama to close it out. I'll start us off here. Brandon Flehardy, 37, The Plague.
Stefan Shaver, 34, Yodel.
Yodel-hoo. Right? It's we yodel at the end, right?
Everybody else
Do you know how to
enjoy
yodel?
it.
Do you know how to yodel,
No,
like for real though?
Unfortunately, I don't. I will be lying.
Okay. They teach you how to ski, but they don't teach you how to
They
yodel.
don't teach you how to yodel, and you are not allowed to watch Sound of Music, or they revoke your citizenship. So
yeah, I could see that, right? Because that's kind of controversial.
I didn't even know the movie. So jokes aside, I had no idea what the movie is until I moved here, and I haven't seen it yet. So it's one thing I'm proud of. I have not watched it yet. So
okay, awesome. Well, it was great to see you, man. Have a good rest of your day.
Have a good one, and happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you too, brother. Talk to you later.